I'm going to leap forward in time and concentrate on concentrate on the obvious, which means I'm going to leap to the late Middle Ages and the Renaissance and around the Mediterranean, and then I'm going to leap a little further forward and allow Mark to take care of now.
Okay,
I'm going to again take the obvious, the sort of that exemplary lyric form that may be the first that springs to mind when we think of lyric poetry, which is in the Western tradition, the sonnet, an invention of a very interesting origin. There was, in 13th century Sicily, a court presided over by Frederick II, Holy Roman Emperor and King of Sicily, who was a remarkable man and Catholic in that originary sense, in his tastes and without limit in his curiosity. He assembled Arabic mathematicians, Jewish philosophers, and physicians. He assembled people from all over the world he was possible to reach. He was a patron of the sciences. He was a patron of the arts. He was an obsessive falconer when he wasn't leading a crusade, and he led the only one that did not turn into a bloodbath. He's a very interesting man. Or fighting other kinds of wars. He was out with his falcons and writing for decades his guide, The Art of Falconry. But in his court was a notary among the people attendant upon him, named Giacomo da Lentini, who adapted a Provençal form and produced a 14-line poem, which has made a big difference in the West. That was a form picked up by Dante, Cavalcante, Petrarch, who canonized a set of subjects as well. And love is something deeply embedded in the tradition. Erotic love that must be impeded. Crucial to this love and its function in the lyric poem is that it's got to be frustrated by something. The lady is indifferent. The lady is already possessed by somebody else. Best of all, as both Dante and Petrarch discovers, the lady dies. It's great. It makes her extremely useful as an agent of higher longing. And I want to just read to you an example from, this is sort of canonical. Again, I'm going way for the obvious here. This is a prose translation of Petrarch's, the number 190 of the Rime Sparse, or Scattered Rhymes, one of probably his most famous sonnet. And here's the prose version. A white doe on the green grass appeared to me, with two golden horns between two rivers, in the shade of a laurel, when the sun was rising in the unripe season. Her look was so sweet and proud that to follow her I left every task, like the miser who, as he seeks treasure, sweetens his trouble with delight. Let no one touch me, she bore written with diamonds and topazes around her lovely neck. It has pleased Caesar to set me free. And the sun had already turned at midday. My eyes were tired by looking, but not sated, when I fell into the water and she disappeared. There is a world of things to say about that poem, even coming to us without the gorgeous music and intricate form of the Italian, the original Italian. But it has been a touchstone for many as they've thought about the lyric, the meditative, the contemplative, something remembered, narrated in the past tense, but inhabited emotionally, spiritually, in the present, something irrevocably lost, but so precious that the poet needs to contrive a way to imagine having that loss all over again, which is as close as we come to possession. This links, of course, to what Jane was saying about temporality, too. I think the foundational business of the lyric poem is to give us just fleetingly, maybe a few times in our life, whether we're writing or reading, the impression of having been here, of having inhabited the present tense, which does not exist. By the time I name it, it's gone. If I try to look forward to it, it's not yet here. But so that the best we can have is the sense that it wasn't wholly lost on me. There was a moment. I felt I had been there. The inwardness, of course, the centering on a longing that is deeply private is part of this inheritance. And yet, of course, there's always that paradox about the lyric. If it were merely private, it wouldn't need to be a poem. It wouldn't be shared. It wouldn't be something that can move the rest of us. So there's always a doubleness to it. And surely that longing for speech, which imagines a hearer, in this instance, not a hearer in particular, not an inner audience, but nevertheless it is the longing to not have been here alone. Something happened when this form got imported into English, which is the tradition that made many of us in this room. It's my mother tongue. It's the only tongue I'm actually competent in, and I worry about that competency a lot every day. But I want to, Surrey and Wyatt, the 16th century English poets, translated. Sonnet in English was born through translation, and let's pay tribute to the translators among us, because that has to continue. And I want you to hear a difference, because one of the things that has been occupying my mind lately is the thought of, because we inherit this understanding of the lyric as private, as inward, as deriving from a source that requires, in fact, solitude. I've become contrarily fascinated with the lyric as a form of social speaking. Here is Wyatt's translation, you judge, of Petrarch's 190. Whoso list to hunt, I know where is an Ind. But as for me, alas, I may no more. The vain travail hath wearied me so sore, I am of them that farthest cometh behind. Yet may I by no means my wearied mind draw from the deer, but as she fleeth afore, fainting I follow. I leave off, therefore, sithens in a net I seek to hold the wind. Who list her hunt, I put him out of doubt, as well as I may spend his time in vain. And graven with diamonds in letters plain, there is written her fair neck round about. Noli me tungere, for Caesar's I am, and wild for to hold, though I seem tame. there's a lot to be said about the difference between belonging to Caesar and having been set free by Caesar. But what I want to focus on for the moment is that this is not the same kind of speech. This is the other end of the spectrum. This is not meditative. This is not inward. This does not depend on a misty audience. This has, it's unstable, its rhetorical position, which is just the rhetoric just being like me talking to you. It's just like the betweenness of language. It's unstable, but included in that instability are definite moments when I think of it as like Wyatt's locker room poem. I mean, it's the guys. He could be like writing her phone number on a telephone booth if it were 30 years ago, or posting something like on the internet. It's a sort of, he's complaining, he's pissed off, he's aggrieved, and he's aggrieved at her. And he's also one among many, he's in the game. And it's not absolute loss, it's not having her. It's that he's coming farthest behind. He's not even up there at the front of the pack. And that transformation, that to me is a wild transformation, wild. And it made possible all of Shakespeare, for example, that play, that incredible, it made rhetorical manipulation, the who's speaking to whom part, absolutely one of the central instruments of lyric, and therefore its social life, and therefore a different kind of savvy. Now you have me, now you don't. Now I'm going to get general and abstract, or even philosophical, but I've got to dig, at somebody who's pissed me off and reduced me to being philosophical. So it's we were hearing on the previous panel about the wonderful array of techniques and strategies and formal improvisations available to the lyric. And I guess I wanted to point to one moment where it actually takes the top of my head off. That I'm not saying it's better than Petrarch, God forbid, but it was, as innovation goes, it was wild. It came as though out of nowhere, and it changed us.